Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the very contentious and touchy subject of rape allegations. Now, this is the front rape allegations, or the issue of rape generally, and indeed, sex between the genders, and this is the front line as the activists, the feminist activists see. This is the front line of the gender social power struggle. This is it. This is ground zero. So they treat it with an importance and attach an importance to it that many of us can't understand. Well, why? But to them, this is gender warfare. This is the apocalypse front line, and so they treat it differently, see it differently than sensible, reasonable people do. Now, when you look at the argument that rape is everywhere and Nazis and fascists are everywhere, it's the same sort of crowd that argues that. And when you look at the supposedly academic papers that permeate the space, saying that only 1 or 2% of rape allegations are false, then and then you look at the people the supposed or alleged academics that produce these numbers, and they're all radical gender studies academics. That they're very few of them are not lesbians, and activists. If you go and look at the sort of stuff these people post online, it is hysterical, anti-family, anti-male, anti-straight white male. Nazis are everywhere. Rapists are everywhere. Every rapist is a Nazi, swastika way, and so on. So they go. So there's hardly an objective. They're also part of the, if you like, the rape feminist industry. Their incomes and their lifestyles and their inner city apartment lifestyles depend entirely on ginning up this hysteria that rape is this omnipresent problem, and that it's far more widespread even than they allow. I mean, if they say that 99 out of 100 men are rapists, then they're going easy. They're toning it down. So they're the good guys and everyone else is the bad guys. Now, because of this, even where they employ, say, straight white males to do or some of the research or put their name on the research, which is blatantly ideological, by the way, even a high school kid could see that. When they do that, then you see that the person's, again, their lifestyle, income, and everything is completely dependent on churning out this nonsense and being part of it. So it's very ideologically heavy and very fact-free. And when you look at the opening paragraphs of their supposed academic studies, then it's laced with hyperbolic ideological hysteria, and within a sentence or two that you're looking at propaganda, not at any sort of academic research. Now, the other thing they do is one angry lesbian activist academic will then hand the paper to supposedly be reviewed by another angry lesbian activist feminist academic, so that they cross-pollinate and cross-support and cross-justify each other. So the idea that's being peer-reviewed by independent reviewers, of course, is nonsense. They only hand it over to other activists to say, well, that's right, all men are Hitler Nazis. And yeah, sure they are. But let's have a look at the meta-analysis, because on one side, the say advocates that say, well, look, this propaganda about all men are rapists just demonizes men. It's not true. It's not accurate, and is nothing other than ideological hysteria. This is harmful to society, and we don't need it. Now, it's very well funded. This all men are rapists industry. It's very well funded. So it's clear that the globalists want this because it creates social division, gender division. So they want it to be there, and governments and NGOs and so on, charities, very generously fund and facilitate and support this. But is any of it true? Are we in some sort of epidemic or pandemic of racism? Now, just looking at just a few of the papers I looked at, again, it's I mean, to someone like me, it's obvious it's ideological hysteria because it's just so fact-free. If it is a problem, then you rely on facts, facts will tell, and you don't have to make things up. If it is an epidemic or pandemic, as they claim, you don't need to make anything up. The facts will speak for themselves. But it's again remarkably fact-free. Also, they jump around, so they'll use to say, well, anecdotal evidence from African refugee camps in the middle of some war-torn, civil war, third world shithole, is that women there are being raped at such and such a rate, and then they'll jump back into the West, and as if that what's happening in some third world refugee camp in the middle of nowhere is happening in downtown New York or Sydney or London or somewhere like that. So they use a particular style of propaganda delivery, which is to gin up the hysteria, but avoid the facts. So let's look at some of the facts. I made a few notes here. So now this is, of course, a very touchy subject, but here's a meta-analysis of meta-analysis, and it includes, I think, English-speaking countries as best I can tell here. So it examines 2,500 rape allegations. Now, these were allegations made to, so these meta-analysis claims, 2,500 rape allegations made to police. Now, I've rounded off some of the numbers here, but 1,850 cases of 2,500 allegations were not proceeded on or acted upon by the police. Now, this gets screams of police racism and police misogyny and so on. The police, according to the activists, the police must treat every allegation as absolutely genuine. Absolutely. If she says Billy Bob did it, he did it. He fucking did it. The burden of proof should be completely reversed, so that Billy Bob has to prove he didn't do it. But also the burden of proof now rests on the police to disprove the woman's claim. So a woman comes in and says, I was raped. It is 100% true. There is not the shreddest, tiniest doubt. So the police have to now prove it. This is according to how the activists view the whole system. The police must now prove that the allegation is not. So they have to put all the resources in, not to say, is there a case here to pursue, but they must prove that it's not. Now, this is a lot of resources by the police. They also insist specially trained officers who are indoctrinated with ideology must handle these cases. So they straight away want indoctrinated ideological fanatics, specially trained and embedded within the police. Only they should handle these cases. The idea of fact finding. No. This is and they always no. This goes beyond facts. This is and they constantly go into the ideological space rather than the facts. Look, if a rape's occurred and the facts, then prosecute it to pursue it as and then prosecute it as properly laid out in the laws of the land and penalties issued as if it's a crime, it's a crime. Prosecute it and prosecute it based on the facts. But they don't want that. They want to go beyond and constantly laying little entrapment things here, like the police must prove that the allegation is not true. The accused man must prove that it's not. And so all the onus of all the woman needs to do is make the allegation, and then all the onus, burden of proof, everything else is then she need now do nothing. All she needs to do is say that it happened, and that's her involvement is now, or largely at least, completed. That's the setup they want. And they seem to be getting that in some instances as more and more activists are put into the justice system and become judges and prosecutors and so on. Nonetheless, so we've got an astonishing number of cases that the police don't take up. I mean, this is like, wow. Now, again, the activists say all the allegations are true, but out of these over 1,800 cases, 700 and some cases, the accuser, the female, said, I got raped, withdrew the allegation or refused to cooperate. Now, this is when she's come in and said, okay, I was raped and Billy Bob did it. So she signs a thing there. But when the police then go back and say, look, we need some evidence here and we need some some more information so we can go and chase after Billy Bob. So where did this happen? And that sort of thing. Now, this, and I've been involved indirectly in some of these cases, some cases like this where, well, Billy Bob raped me. Well, where did it occur? Oh, I don't know. Well, when did it occur? I can't remember. Well, who else was there? I don't know. Well, what was? Can you even say the day or the month or the week or something that happened? No, not really. Well, can you say if it happened in the city? Or I don't remember. So the police can't really do much with that, and so the by refusing to cooperate, it effectively neutralises the thing. But also the amount of women that withdrew the allegation. And if you drill down into further this, I was drunk, I was angry, look, I wasn't feeling good that day. Oh, look, I was on some medication. So that all manner of, it wasn't my fault that I made a false allegation. So there's not a lot of women who are prepared to take responsibility. Anyway, over 700 cases we just withdrew or refused to cooperate. Now here's an interesting statistic here. In just on 260 cases, this is where allegation of rape, the offender didn't exist. Now, this was sometimes confused identity, where she goes to a party, everyone's on party drugs, gets drunk, she gets laid, but can't remember who it was with. It was Billy Bob that well, actually, Billy Bob wasn't at that party. He wasn't there. Billy Bob was in Alaska at the time, and you're saying this happened in Florida. Wasn't he? Well, maybe it's someone else. Gee, I don't remember who it was. Well, can you give us a name? No, don't know. And so you get the. So not only is it the offender didn't exist. It was this guy called Jimmy Jack. Well, there's no one called Jimmy Jack who was there. I wasn't there. So this is is the person delusional? Are they so off their face on party drugs they didn't know who it was, or if the person was actually real, was an imaginary person, for example? So over 250 cases, the offender didn't exist. Then it goes to outright false allegation, where it was proven that the person wasn't there or didn't do it or didn't have any intimate relationship with the accuser. So it's just over 300 cases of that. Now, here's an astonishing number of cases here. We're talking out of 2,500 rape allegations, well over 2,000 cases. The evidence just simply doesn't exist, not even baseline evidence. The accuser withdrawing or refusing to cooperate, then another several hundred cases where the offender either didn't exist or wasn't there, and then outright false allegations. So the outright false allegation. Now the others you could say were false. If you say you're raped by Billy Bob and Billy Bob wasn't even there, that's a false allegation. But they categorize it differently. So they're saying that the offender didn't exist is now another category. So they use a number of subcategories here. So really the straight up false allegations are about 12-13%. But if you look at all the other categories, these separate categories they've created, we're now up to false allegations, which also include, by the way, that there was no evidence to pursue, which is a false allegation. That the false allegations are now running over 80%. Now, some of these could be there simply isn't the evidence, like I was raped, I was Billy Bob. Okay, well, can you give us some detail? Not really. I was off my face on alcohol or party drugs. Who was the guy? I can't really remember. So there could be or where he simply says, "Well, I wasn't there at the time," or denies it, or just because if the guy makes a hardcore denial and the police have no evidence, then they're relying on the guy just rolling and saying, "Oh, yeah, it was me. I'm a bad, evil, misogynist, rapist, Nazi. Yeah, it was me. Yeah. Please lock me up. I just want to. So in that case, or if there's a guy who has a prior, say, conviction or something like that for rape, where he may be a logical candidate for the police to arrest. So we're talking over 80% here. Now then it goes to the prosecutor. The cases remaining go to the prosecutors, and quite a lot of the cases dropped by the prosecutors. So I'm surprised actually that the police, especially in cases where the police have got a special rape unit where ideological fanatics are put into the police force, that they're far more likely to take cases to the prosecutors and won't really stand up because they see it all ideologically rather than factually. So quite a lot of cases then are dropped by the prosecutors. And of the 2,500 cases, only 90 get a guilty verdict, and it's a bit hard. It's guilty. I mean, the spread of cases here are, if you grab someone in the ass, that's sexual assault. So that gets lumped in with some of these. Not in every jurisdiction. So yeah, you're guilty of grabbing, Billie Jean on the ass, and so community service order for you. And so there are a whole number of cases mixed in here, and the assumption is, well, they must all be violent, rape with guns and knives and ropes and cudgels, and that's simply not true. A lot of the cases fall over in trial because it's insufficient evidence. And so the guilty cases that are again that go to trial and get a guilty verdict are about 4%, I'd say 5%. Let's be generous and round it off at 5%. There's another bunch of cases where they take a plea deal, but a lot of those don't seem to have prison time, from what I can see. So I don't know how serious the allegation is in the first place and why it would even be in court. So let's lump all those together and say that 8% get a guilty or part guilty outcome. So let's look at it. Now, the feminist activists argue that this is an indication that we live in a Nazi misogyny and so on and so forth. That only 8% get, but given the bar is constantly being lowered and the burden of proof reversed, and some pretty weak cases are being dragged into court, and you still only get 8% conviction, half of which are terrified people taking plea deals, terrified young men taking plea deals, then that's hardly an indication that there's the allegations are true. Or fact-based, and even putting aside people that have, drunken on party drugs, and I can't really remember. I think I might have been raped. I think it could have been Billy Bob, but I don't really know. I'm sure there are plenty of those. But even so, if given the maniacal attempt to get guilty convictions, and you can still only get 7 or 8% guilty convictions, then that means that the claims, the accusations of rape are either outright false or so flimsy that they can't even make it to trial, or the police can't even finish it. Now it must be difficult. A woman comes in and says, "Oh, I was raped. I'm not sure who, I'm not sure when, I'm not sure where, and I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I was raped." Now that's the police are required now to treat that as a genuine case, whereas years ago they said, "Hey, you got to give us some facts here, otherwise we can't." Now, police officers that I knew from years ago, they were quite blatant about it, that the majority of allegations, by far and away the majority of the allegations were false. It was just women trying to get back at guys, I'll get back at you, I'll go to the police and that'll fuck you up, that type of thing. So a lot of it was just malicious nonsense, and trying to get even, this sort of thing. But that's now been sort of put to one side, where every allegation must be treated as fact. So even after all the reversing the burden of proof and requiring the police to disprove rather than say, is there a, give us the facts, in spite of all that, they can still only get 8%. So to me, this is an indication of that the majority, by far and away, the majority of the allegations are false. But to the feminist, lesbian, hate all men, hate family activists, this is simply absolute proof of the Nazi misogyny of society, and in their view, how much more work needs to be done. So what are in their view, the feminist activists, lesbians, what in their view, what needs to be done to solve this terrible hot button social problem of every woman getting raped all of the time, every day, and this sort of stuff? Well, the burden of proof has to be lowered, or has to be increased on men. You have to just keep on increasing that burden of proof until you get majority convictions. And so the outcome is what they're chasing here. As soon as you get majority convictions, preferably all men being convicted, then justice is being done, and it's equity, and it's equality, and it's yada yada yada, all this sort of stuff. So that's their only. And they just want to keep on increasing that burden of proof. Now, I've been watched court cases where the judge has the power to just arbitrarily raise the burden of proof, and it goes something like this: Mr. Billy Bob, Billie Jean says that you raped her, and so you have to prove you didn't do it. So we're treating Billie Jean's claim as true. Billy Bob says she's got no evidence. She doesn't know where it happened, when it happened, this or that. Well, don't care, irrelevant. We're treating it, the court is treating it as true. It's you are now guilty of rape, you Nazi motherfucker, and you have to prove you did not do it. Now, the court at this stage then also has the arbitrary power to determine what burden of proof. So there's no agreed rules or anything. So the court can say what burden of proof. This wasn't a rape case, it was something else. But what burden of proof you have to meet. So, okay, well, Mr. Billy Bob, you have to prove that you weren't, at that address or you've never been to that address. Well, I can prove that, Your Honour, because I've got these sworn testimonies, sworn affidavits to show that I wasn't, I've never been there. Well, the court isn't accepting those affidavits. We require those witnesses who signed those, we require them to be in the court right now, this very second. Don't care if you can get them tomorrow or next week or later on today. Don't care. Those affidavits, that the people that wrote those affidavits and swore them out, they must be in the court right now, this very second. So the court can just arbitrarily decide that. They don't tell you in advance. Because any reasonable court who wants to find, is looking for evidence and facts and so on, would say, okay, well, look, all right, well, thanks for those affidavits, Mr. Billy Bob. Can you get some of these witnesses in tomorrow or the next day or sometime soon? Because I'd like to give the other side the opportunity to cross-examine them, for example. So that would be the reasonable thing. That's due legal process, the rules of evidence, fairness, procedural fairness. But no, the court says you must have them in. No advance notice, you must have them in right now. Now, you don't even know, during the legal proceeding when those affidavits are going to come up in the evidence. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be at any time. So how can you possibly arrange witnesses or the people who swore the affidavits to be there? I mean, one of them's, moved overseas to work. How are you going to get them to come? And so the judge is able to, an activist judge, obviously, is able to say, okay, well, if you haven't got those witnesses in the court right now, I am not going to include those affidavits. So suddenly the guy's got a lot of proof that he never went to that address or was ever there. He's got good solid evidence, sworn testimony. It's entered into the evidence and been disclosed in discovery. He's got all of that, but the judge can just arbitrarily say, no, I'm not including that now. So all that evidence is suddenly gone. So the judge can say, okay, well, you can't prove you weren't there now because I just dismissed all of your evidence. And so therefore you were there because you can't prove you weren't. So the default position is always whatever she alleges is true. Whatever evidence he has to disprove it is dismissed. And so that's how the activist nature of the court works. And this is what the activist feminists want. They want that level of burden of proof. So it's a crushing burden of proof. Let's suppose the guy does have the witnesses waiting in the court, waiting outside the court, ready to come in. So, okay, Mr. Billy Bob, do you have the witnesses? Yes, I do, Your Honour. Oh, okay. Well, look, I'm closing the court down today and we'll commence the proceedings tomorrow. But Your Honour, says Billy Bob, these people have had to take a day off work. They've had to, huge inconvenience, had to be here to do. The court has urgent business to attend to. And if you want me to hear their evidence, they better be back here tomorrow. So the next morning, the court starts and the witnesses are waiting again outside. Huge inconvenience. So they're really going out of their way to come along here, only because the court's being difficult. I mean, they've made sworn testimony. That should be enough. But then anyway, then the judge says, well, I'm going to attend to other business now, and those witnesses will just have to wait. And so they wait and they wait and they come, because the court closes at 4:00. So by 3:30 or so, the witnesses, they can't wait any longer. They've taken that 2 days off work. So they go and they've got children to pick up from school or something. So they go and then the judge says, Mr. Billy Bob, are your witnesses still outside waiting? No, Your Honour, they had to go home. They couldn't wait any longer. They waited the whole day. Oh, they've gone? Are you sure they've gone? All right, then I'll hear those witnesses now. Oh, they're not here? Oh, well, then we can't include. And so they'll play that game too. Don't think these things don't happen, boy. They do. And it's widespread in any ideological court, divorce courts as examples. So this is the sort of thing that that the angry, frontline gender battle, struggle, social power feminists want. They want that level of perversion in the justice system, which was the same level of perversion that the Soviet courts use, or the communist country court. Any ideological government or ideological law goes down this exact same path. It's a copybook. They all use it. And this is what they want. But this meta-analysis illustrates to any independent observer that at best 7 or 8% of the rape allegations are true, in my opinion, and even those involve quite a few people who've been browbeaten, threatened, and intimidated, and scared shitless into taking guilty pleas when they really didn't need to. You've been tasked to state your pushback challenge. Thank you for listening.